For centuries, the country of Morocco had resisted invasion from other countries, thus living peacefully as an Islamic monarchy. Despite the close proximity to Europe, Moroccans and Europeans knew very little about each other, but that was until 1844, during the French invasion of Algeria, when Algeria's leader Abdelkader took refuge from the French in Morocco. A Moroccan army was later sent to Algeria, but were unfortunately defeated. This was when the French finally noticed Morocco and took note of it. Because Morocco were defeated in Algeria, the Sultan of Morocco promised to expel the Algerian leader if he were to enter Morocco again. And 2 years later, they did exactly that. After the death of the Sultan, Spain started some beef over land in the north of Morocco, so Spain, or more specifically Madrid, starts a war against Morocco. But they eventually work it out, with Spain coming out better in the final deal. After the next Sultan died, his son was having trouble keeping Morocco's independence, with the Spanish and the French breathing down their necks. Europeans saw an opportunity to extend their hand, then had a discussion amongst themselves. So in 1904, the British said, "Hey France, you can have Morocco if you don't interfere with our plans in Egypt." Morocco said, "As long as we can have the north of Morocco, then everything is muy bueno." And Italy were like, "As long as we can take Libya," but by then everybody had already dispersed. So then the Europeans came to Morocco to discuss Morocco's future. This caused the Sultan to flee, so then the Sultan's brother became the Sultan but couldn't control the country, so was forced to ask the French to rescue him. When they did, he had no choice but to hand over Morocco to them by signing the Treaty of Fez in 1912. Therefore, Morocco became a French protectorate, but in return the French promised the status of the Sultan and that his successor would be maintained. The French also allowed Spain to claim a position in the north of Morocco as well. The French already had enough experience colonizing, since they had done so already with Algeria and Tunisia. But Morocco was a different challenge because they had 1,000 years of independence and they were conveniently close to Spain and France. But for a while, the French ruled and let the Sultan believe he had power. Then the Sultan was replaced by order of the resident general to his more amenable brother, whom the people liked despite his cooperation with the French. The country continued to innovate, and eventually the Sultan died and was replaced by his son, who did a good job improving the country. Then the French made a tremendous mistake, which would later be revealed to be the emergence of a rebellion. The French tried starting conflict between the Arabs and the Imazigans to undercut any growing sense of national unity, which led them to issue the Berber Decree in 1930, which was a pathetic effort to divide the Imazigans and the Arabs. This did the opposite and provoked a Moroccan nationalist reaction, and even forced the administration to modify its proposals. Around 1933, people really felt like the French had overstayed their visit, and political parties were established to increase Moroccan rule. At this point, the French were claiming the south of Morocco, and the Spanish were claiming the north of Morocco. It was like being stuck with only the patty of a burger. Sure, it's the best part of the burger, but you want the whole thing, or else you would have just ordered something else. 1937, more rioting occurred. 1939 was World War II, and calls for independence grew stronger, and the Sultan issued cooperation with the French. In 1943, the Sultan was influenced a lot by his meeting with Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was the American president at the time and was inspired to fight for Morocco's independence. France was not ready to let go, so they threatened the Sultan to not try anything funny and to stay away from those nationalists. He agreed, but anti-French demonstrations continued and even led to bloodshed. The French power was threatened, so in panic they replaced the Sultan with someone who could help the situation, but the attack still increased. The French came under strong international pressure to reinstate the Sultan. Eventually, France gave up, which led to the independence of Morocco and the Sultan's return. Then on the 2nd of March 1956, Morocco officially gained back their independence. Tunisia's turn would come just weeks later.